Since I started making F1 related videos, Twitter has been an indispensable source of information and at times complete surreality when reading the comments. I don't think I'll surprise you, dear listener, when I say that there have been plenty of interesting opinions on the recent F1 driver/key personal changes in the sport. Because I like to pride myself in taking the reasonable route most of the time, I thought that this video would be a great opportunity to explore and counter what Twitter commenters had to offer when big breaking announcements were made in the F1 space. I'm making this video for your enjoyment and because I cannot be a keyboard warrior replying to comments when I'm limited to an absolute joke of 280 characters in each tweet and wish not to flood the platform either. So, enjoy. Now, I said I was going to look at changes in the F1 space, and while we'll look at some of those, sometimes one's everlasting commitment to his team offers just as much fun, if not more. The absolute shocker of Stroll's multi-year stay with Aston Martin attracted plenty of kind-hearted messages like, "What a huge waste of a seat," and an insult to your own people that you have been working tirelessly to build the fastest car you can. "Daddy's son is a crap driver and no one will take you seriously as a team as long as he has a seat. Squandering your potential in the name of nepotism." The 7-year-old F1 rookie. So he decided against a tennis career then? Shame, Aston will remain a mid-team for the next couple of years. A fantastic move guaranteeing the team will never achieve anything significant. There are some tweets where I cannot tell if the author employed good old sarcasm or had a sunstroke when typing the following. "Lance and Fernando is a good lineup going into the new rules era. One of the best, fully deserved. Welcome back, Lance." I mean, he never left. Before we throw mud at Lance, let's examine his 7.5-year F1 career thus far, so that we could throw said mud with all the facts in mind. Stroll, in the past, had proudly, and in a somewhat uncharacteristically talkative manner, said that the super license is there to prevent drivers to buy their way into F1, which means he doesn't have any mirrors in his house because when looking at his F1 career thus far throughout his 7 years, he only managed to outperform one of his teammates, poor Sergei Sirotkin, who spent his one and only year in F1 with Stroll as his teammate. Now, outperformed is a strong word, given that Sirotkin comfortably beat Stroll in qualifying and had his fair share of unluck during races. Mr. Not a Pay Driver was absolutely demolished by Perez between 2019 and 2020, not only in terms of points but in qualifying too. To an enormous extent, that is. But of course, the embarrassment wasn't over then. Vettel, who I respect greatly, but who wasn't in his prime upon his collaboration with Aston Martin, had doubled the points of Stroll's in 2022, while in 2023 Alonso had absolutely demolished the last breadcrumbs of Lance Stroll's perceived competence. Plus, don't forget all the shining displays of skill and serenity we have been blessed with when watching Stroll compete. Tweets insinuating that the team cannot be taken seriously are all the more justified when Mike Crack says the following. "I think in general, we have a certain duty to bring young drivers into Formula 1, said Crack. But the main thing is that we have the best possible drivers, independent of what their experience level is and where they are coming from. So for us, it is what is the best choice, and if there had been someone from F2 or whatever which would outweigh what we have selected, we would have gone for it." The level of irony and hypocrisy killed my last remaining 2 brain cells that were nearly destroyed when watching Stroll crash compilations for this video. And the problem with the team is not only that they employ Stroll as a driver and PR specialist, but the confirmed fact that they have been building the car around him instead of Alonso, which kind of makes you realize that at least part of Aston Martin's upgrades, can be attributed to Mr. Not a Pay Driver's desires in the development process. Now, I could dedicate a whole day to dissect my problems with Lance Stroll's continued F1 career, but for your sake and mine, I'm going to move on to the most celebrated and loved driver on the grid, Esteban Ocon, and his announcement to continue with Haas from and beyond 2025. Why, honestly, Ocon together with Stroll are the most overrated drivers of the grid, when there are so many talented drivers in F2. What a shame that such a trash driver is still in F1. LOL, what a demotion. Should just retire already since you have not shown any improvement or progress in your so-called F1 career. Now, personally, I don't necessarily agree with the demotion notion, given that Alpine keeps sacking their staff left and right every year, their car being as reliable as Helmut Marko's take on the driver market, and the fact that Alpine has 40% of Haas's points thus far in 2024. If anything, based on the current climate, it seems like a promotion to me. And as for people saying that Ocon is a trash driver equally skilled as Stroll, listen, Ocon's career, albeit not lacking controversy, hasn't been nearly as eye-wateringly devastating as Lance's. He wasn't a whole lot of Perez in his first season in F1, and while he once again again finished behind the Mexican in his second year, the gap between the teammates is not at least thanks to Ocon's 5,000 DNFs that year. On top of that, Ocon outqualified Perez significantly, meaning that on average he was 2 positions ahead of his teammate on a Saturday. I will say that his 2020 Renault debut next to Ricciardo leaves things to be desired, as he collected half as many points as Ricciardo accomplished, but Ocon had 4 DNFs, all due to Renault's staggering reliability standards, whilst his teammate only had 1. In 2021, the king himself grazed the Alpine carpet, and I must say Ocon measured up to Alonso quite nicely. They were close in the championship, were absolutely equal in quali performance. Now please remember what Alonso did to poor Stroll in comparison. One must keep in mind, of course, that in 2022 Alonso's car simply did not want to be driven, and the Spaniard had a season of unluck that would make Ferrari blush. Ocon beat Alonso as a consequence, despite him being 2 positions off of his teammate in terms of average race positions. True that he was 4 points short compared to Gasly in 2023, but once more, Ocon had to face a lot more of Alpine's mechanical failures than his teammate. Therefore, my judgment on Ocon's capabilities is that while he's no Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton, he's also galaxies away from Stroll's lack of competence, and I don't think he would be undeserving of an F1 seat if we only look at his skills. But in F1, skills are not everything, because it's a team game. Given Ocon's reputation of inhibiting serial killer traits when attacking or defending against his teammates, a lot of fans now fear for Behrman's life. Very well, now you have the chance to crash a new mate. I'm so sorry for Behrman. Behrman will not only have to put all into the races, but will also have to keep in mind to avoid Ocon as much as possible, making his job twice as hard. Well, it is true that he had bad relationships with all of his past teammates, maybe with the exception of Ricciardo, although that could be because they only spent 1 year together. To be fair, as heated as the Perez versus Ocon tension became in 2018, Ocon was certainly not acting alone, as Perez contributed to those incidents between the pair to an equal degree. And I'm not Ocon's therapist, but I have this feeling that due to his fragile financial background, which was a big contributor in him leaving the sport for 2019, he will forever look at his teammates and think, I need to destroy you to prove his worth and never be without a seat again. Which is quite funny, since him being this way was the eventual cherry on Alpine's "we are gonna sack you" cake. His intent seemed often malicious towards Alonso in 2022, and don't even get me started on that Monaco lunch on Gasly this year. But let's move on from Asti Bestie, as I did promise you to look at personal changes outside of the driver market, and oh boy, did Twitter come alive under this announcement. So much for Audi Strat. Congrats Binotto, I bet Carlos Sainz will be driving for him next year.
So predictable, Thomas.
I hope it's not strategy. Audi is so screwed. Audi downfall begins even before they start. The Audi project's gonna fail now. Let me say this, Mattia Binotto is and will not be a strategist. At least not in the sense F1 fans are insinuating. Just to be professional and adequately informed, I googled the descriptions of COO and CTO roles and then fell asleep when reading the extensive word salad that was the COO description. But the gist of it is this. As CO, Binotto has the control over operational initiatives, targets, and challenges that are posed by the FIA. I know even the short version doesn't tell you anything. But more importantly, as CTO, he will be responsible for making sure that the car is safe, reliable, legal, and will oversee technical resources and will drive the direction for technical development. All those who are pointing at Binotto and calling him a clown, please remember that this guy has an immense educational and practical experience in engineering. He joined Ferrari in 1995 when Max Verstappen was only -2 years old, so he was very much part of the Schumacher dominance era. He was promoted as CTO mid-2016, which, if you recall, is the exact same position he will fulfill at Audi as well. He was successful as CTO given that the team got ahead of Red Bull and was moving closer to Mercedes at the time. Thereafter, he achieved the ultimate prize when being promoted to team principal in 2019. The exact year Ferrari's engine power seemed to be on steroids, and thus his reputation was naturally not helped by Ferrari's 2020 and 2021 position when said engine power got lost in the ether. No one calls 2022 a success for Ferrari, but let's face it, they were the only ones showcasing championship title potentials beside Red Bull. Strategy calls were indeed somewhat questionable, and the pit crew must have fallen into coma sometimes. Reliability was not at its peak, but Sainz's love for the gravel and Leclerc's occasional mistakes didn't help either. And since many are questioning the fate of Audi's race strategies just because of Binotto's presence, let's not forget gems like the British GP in 2024 that, unless Binotto is capable of mind control, had nothing to do with him. My verdict as a result is let Swiss Harry Potter start with a clean slate, trust his experience and expertise, and besides, if strategy goes wrong, you can at least partly blame the future team principal. As I value your time and well-being, I will end this video right here, right now, but I'm far from being done with Twitter comments, so rest assured, part 2 is coming soon. Until then, go outside and avoid Twitter at all costs.